Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared sharp betting information.
Welcome back to podcast 47 of 2020. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev, follow us at The Odds Breakers, and follow us on social media /The Odds Breakers. This episode is being brought to you by Kelly in Vegas Proxy Service. If you'd like to get into these huge NFL football contests, please visit kellyinvegas.com and let her know the Odds Breaker sent you. You can win $1 million plus going to the Circa or the Westgate Super Contest. It looks like the Circa contest only has about 1,100 people in it. They need 3,000 guaranteed to just break even on this contest because they are guaranteeing that they are paying out $3 million total. So right now they are way under, and NFL football is only a week away. So huge value by competing for that kind of money. Get into the Circa contest or the obviously world-renowned Westgate Super Contest and see if you can be a winner this year. Both contests do pay out. The Circa pays out through 50 places, and the Westgate Super Contest has paid out through top 100 places. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the website and the podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. If nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. Last year in NFL, we are up 56.5% on our plays, up 53 units. So had a great NFL season, looking to repeat that for this coming year. My friends, we have a fantastic show for you today, bringing back some of the heavy hitters to go over the Kentucky Derby and a little bit of football. Mr. Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com and Chris Fallica from ESPN College Game Day cannot wait to get into that with them. Before we get into that, I wanted to mention that I will be having a new show with Kyle Hunter, and it's going to be a Twitch/YouTube video show on our channels. There is a Odds Breakers Twitch channel and Odds Breakers YouTube channel. I haven't done a lot with it yet, but we have to expand more into social media. But we're actually going to have a live show on Saturday mornings. We believe it's going to be 6 p.m. Pacific, or 6 a.m. Pacific time and 9 a.m. Eastern time. So that way we can kind of go over some final lines, some movements, some last-minute injuries. Maybe there's a game or two we like and are going to give you a free play on it. Explain some of the line moves. If you have any questions, we're going to want to take them and talk about it on the show as well. We're really excited to do that and just branch out into our sports betting and media world. This next segment with Chris Fallica and Marco D'Angelo is brought to you by mybookie.ag. For a 50% sign-up bonus, please visit MyBookie and use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. Terms and conditions apply. They also have a race book as well over at MyBookie, so you can get your Kentucky Derby plays in and hopefully win on that huge ticket. So Kirk Cousins made the news yesterday talking about the coronavirus. He said that his level of fear for the coronavirus is 0.00001%. So a lot of people in the media weren't happy about that. And he's getting flack for it as well. But at the same time, the kid stood strong and said, hey, I've seen enough people already have it. I kind of know what it is. I'm happy to take my chances. But I can imagine that after Kirk Cousins got done with that interview, he approached his critics and was like,
You like that? You like that?
Shortly after, Kirk Cousins was never interviewed again. Let's get right into our show, my friends, with our fantastic guests, Mr. Marco D'Angelo from Wager Talk and Chris Fallica from ESPN. And now I'm very happy to welcome back some of the greatest cappers that I know in the sports betting and the horse racing world. You know them as Mr. Marco D'Angelo from WagerTalk.com, the Pony Pundit Show and Bet On It, and Mr. Chris Fallica from ESPN College Game Day and the Stanford Steve and the Bear Podcast. Guys, thanks for coming on to talk about the Run for the Roses so late in the year. I have a question. Is the excitement still there with you guys, my friends?
No matter what Derby, it's the Derby, but if we do get a Triple Crown winner, it'll be like Lou Gehrig. There's going to be an asterisk beside the name because of the way the races were stretched out over time and run in the wrong order. And then, of course, the fact that the first race, the Belmont, is normally the last race, and it wasn't the mile and a half, which was the true test of champions. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited about Saturday. Either way, there's a race, there's horses, we can make some money.
Yeah, I'm excited about it as well. Just and the excitement is there's a lot of curiosity I have in seeing the event, because I think this is going to be the first U.S.-based event where you really, really are going to notice, like, wow, there are no fans here. The women in hats, there are no men, there are no people running around with the jackets and the pins touting their horses. There's no pageantry. So it's going to be interesting. And I noticed I said U.S. because I really noticed it with the Champions League final with Bayern Munich and PSG. Like that is such a great event with chants and songs and flags and banners and and obviously that was played in Portugal. But I'm curious to see what you're completely empty on Derby Day. But like Marco said, it's a race. It appears to be a good, fully gone through it yet, and certainly looking forward to try and make some money.
There you go. You know, people can dress up at their own homes, have family over, whatever's safest for them, and still have a good time. The mint juleps will be flowing. You know, it's not going to bother me anything or any way to not have to think about going to the Kentucky Derby, because we still have it, and we should be happy that we have sports going on right now at this point. You know, there was so much worry that some of it wouldn't be started. Let's get going here with the Kentucky Derby. What the heck? They're doing it safely. Why not? You know, and it's been a tumultuous year, obviously, in college football, Chris. And due to this pandemic here, me and you didn't get a chance to really cover the futures market because there was no futures market. But I'd still be hard-pressed not to ask you if there's a season win total or something, or future, or anything to throw out there.
Well, it's funny because people had been asking Steve and I all off season about when's it pod win totals, and no one's posting them in Vegas, at least. And I actually went on with Gil Alexander a couple of weeks ago, and we're like, hey, people are just the listeners out there. Maybe some of you are the people who are asking Steve and I about win totals this year, and we hadn't seen any up. And then somebody actually finally did respond that Bet Online did have some win totals up. And as I said on our podcast, which we recorded earlier, we're not naive enough to be like, oh no, you mean people are betting offshore and not in Vegas and legal jurisdictions in the United States? So if you have a Bet Online account, or wherever you're playing has win totals, there were a couple that stuck out to me. I thought Baylor under 6 was a good play. They won a couple of games in overtime last year. Really had a lot of close game luck, and they're certainly not winning 7. I mean, they're not winning in Austin, they're not winning in Ames, and they're not going to win in Norman. So you got to run the table to get 7-3 and beat you, and I don't think that's happening. I think this is at worst a push, but most likely 5-5. Dave Aranda has to replace, I think, 9 starters on the defense. Mims at wide receiver, and I just don't see it. Mm-hmm. I thought Kansas under 2.5 was another good bet in the Big 12. I don't know how they're winning 3. Maybe they beat Coastal Carolina in the opener, and if they lose to Coastal Carolina, there's no way we're losing. If they beat Coastal Carolina, they still got to win 2 Big 12 games, and I think that's going to be tough.
Coastal Carolina beat them last year. Yeah, Coastal Carolina.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly,
and then Boston College over 4. this is a push it worse scenario. I think they'll beat Duke. I think they'll beat Texas State. I think they'll beat Georgia Tech, and I think they'll beat Syracuse. If you can find a 6 on Syracuse, I would suggest going over, but I saw it move to 5.5 at least at Bet Online, so I don't like it as much. But I think BC, they're going to be improved just because of the change in coach. I think Jeff Hafley will improve that defense, which was young last year. I think getting Jerkovic eligible to play will help their quarterback situation. Obviously, they had an injury there a year ago. Like I said, if you beat Duke, Texas State, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse, then who's to say that you can't maybe beat Pitt or pull an upset maybe in Louisville or someone later in the year? So that was what I liked.
Is Phil Jurkovec the quarterback there, a transfer from Notre Dame?
Yeah, yes, he is. And his case kind of got dragged out a little bit, but finally he was granted eligibility for this year. And then the other win total, the two in the SEC that I liked were Arkansas under 1.5. I mean, this is a team that, seriously, they haven't won an SEC game in 2 years, right? And they're going to win. And they're going to win 2 this year with a completely new coaching staff, with an abbreviated string, and changing back over probably to a different offensive scheme from what they had. I mean, it's an SEC it's an all SEC schedule. I mean, I don't know how they're winning 2 games. So if they win twice and beat me at 1.5. Fine, go for it. But Arkansas 1.5, and then Kentucky was at 5. Again, I think this is a probable push. But I think if you look at the coaching job that Mark Stoops has done last year, I don't think he got the credit that nationally, like people who in the know realize what he dealt with offensively with the injuries they had at quarterback, and basically that offense that they had to run with Lynn Bowden. I see 5 for sure wins. And who's to say, they should have beaten Florida last year. Who's to say they can't potentially beat them this year, or maybe pull another upset along the way? So Kentucky over 5 was the last win total I had. And to continue my rant, I got one more thing that I suggested playing, and that was Iowa State to win the Big 12 at 10-1 or so. Right. This is a team last year that lost to 3 top 15 teams in Iowa, Baylor, and Oklahoma by a combined 4 points. That weird loss to Oklahoma State where I think Purdy threw 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter, including a pick 6. They were that close to being 11-1 or 10-2 last year. They were young last year at the start of the season at wide receiver and running back because of the losses personnel-wise. Breece Hall, running back. The receivers emerge. I think they're going to have the best defense in the Big 12. We'll see what the lack of a crowd in Ames Jack Trice will that affect them or not? I don't know, but I think Iowa State at 10-1 is certainly a good bet to win the Big 12. Remember, Big 12, you just got to be second in that conference to get to the title game. So now that I've chewed up a bunch of clock, we can we can go on to your next question. Actually, hear from Marco on something.
Yeah, yep. We will, man. Just want a quick comment that, Iowa State, we were both talked about that when we talked about the Belmont, and it's still up there at betonline.ag at 12-1. I know that because I just had a look at it this morning, and I took it myself. So I still like Iowa State as well there. The only one I like is I actually like Auburn. I'm higher on Auburn than most other people are, and I'm going on a limb on this, but the 6.5, I think the 6.5 wins is very doable. I know they got to go to Georgia. They obviously have to go to Alabama, but I like the fact that Bo Nix returns. I like the fact that they were a very good ATS team last year. I believe that they were something like 9-4 ATS and plus 3.5 ATS margin. That tells you that they were a little bit undervalued. I know they have some serious trenches to replace, but the fact that they recruited in 2017 9th, 18 was 12th, and 2019 was 11th. That's pretty good. That's kind of in the Clemson range. So I think they can get over 6.5 wins, even if they lose the big ones. So that's my play for Auburn. Especially, Georgia's got a lot of question marks now with the quarterback, Chris, but you might think that Daniels it might be better for them to play. I can't disagree with that. But Jamie Newman was supposed to be their guy coming out. So that's going to be an interesting one with Georgia. 8.5 wins is where they're at. Well, Marco, let's get into the NFL if we can, my man. I hear you might have something for our listeners here to benefit from.
Yeah, I've got, actually I sent you two that I was going to do, and I forgot to put a third one on the list, so I'll run through them pretty quick. The first one I've got is Tampa Bay under 9.5 runs. I'm in baseball mode. 9.5 wins. This is a team that's gotten so much hype because obviously Tom Brady making the move and going down there. And with the situation of the way the NFL is having the season, we didn't have the mini camps, and we're not having preseason games. And I understand that, Tom Brady never plays in the preseason. Well, he doesn't need to because he was in the same system, the whole time. Now he's getting a brand new offense, a whole new terminology. And, we made all the jokes we made about Jameis Winston last year and the 30 interceptions. This is something that if you go back through the history of Bruce Arians, anywhere he's been as an offensive coordinator, a quarterback that's the first year in his system has struggled with turnovers. And it's because Bruce Arians, although he's an offensive genius, and, we had him here in Pittsburgh for quite a while, he is a big risk to reward guy. He'll take the risk to get that big reward. And when you do that, you're going to throw the ball into coverage and you're going to have interceptions. You're going to put the ball downfield. It's not a dink and dunk offense. And I just don't see Tom Brady without the preseason and the other practices that you needed to hit the ground running. And at 9.5 wins, there's not a lot of room for error, if you get off to a slow start learning the system. So I think you've got value under the 9.5. This, number maybe should have been 9, even an 8.5, but because of the name Tom Brady, we got an inflated total. The other one that I think is an inflated total is the Las Vegas Raiders. I was trying to make sure I didn't say Oakland Raiders, and I still screwed it up. But because here in Vegas, the books got clobbered so bad that first year with the Vegas Golden Knights, just because the locals had no team of their own ever to bet, okay? And we saw what the Golden Knights did going to the Stanley Cup final in the first year, and they were 500-1 at the beginning, But you're comparing apples to oranges when you're comparing what happened with the Golden Knights, with the expansion draft and a brand new team, and getting to pick decent players, cherry pick off everybody else's roster, compared to the Raiders coming to town, where basically, we're getting somebody's ex-girl, is what happening here. The other, this was all along a 3-year plan with John Gruden. You come the year you make the official move to Vegas, you've got that spanky new stadium, state of the art. Everybody's excited. You built the team for year 3. Well, you know what? We've got no fans this year. Now, I know a lot of NFL teams are talking that, they might have, fans in, limited, 25%, 50% capacity, whatever. Mark Davis has said right from the start, it's all or none. It wouldn't be fair in the first season of the new stadium not to have all of the season ticket holders be able to enjoy it, and to have just some of them. So there will be no fans for the Raiders, and I think that really hurts them in their quest to get to 8 wins to cover that 7.5. I think 7.5 is too high, but the bookmakers here in Vegas know what the public's going to do. They don't bet unders, guys, all right? They're going to bet over. So that's an inflated number, and that's something as a professional bettor, we're always looking for value. So that's my value shot, is the under 7.5 there. And then the last one, I know probably going to have a lot of people scratching their head, and the first thing I say about this team is going to say, what are you doing? You're saying they're going to get off to a quick start, and that yet you're taking the under on the season win total. If anybody is going to benefit by what has happened with the pandemic and everything in our country and getting off to a good start, is going to be a team that's got all the pieces in place, has the coaching staff in place, nothing's changing. Those are the teams that will get off to the quick start. And there's nobody better getting off to a quick start. It usually starts every year in the preseason than coach the Baltimore Ravens. So, yes, Baltimore will get off to a good start. But 11.5 for a season win total with them, I'm going to go under for several reasons. One, as we get going, last year, Lamar Jackson, great season. Nobody expected them to do what they did last year to the success level that they had. But now we've got a full year of what they did last year to look at game films and try to take some of the things away from them that they did so well. That's one, you're going to get a little bit of a regression there. Two, you're going to get some regression just from the fact the rest of the division got better. Okay? Cincinnati, that's going to take a couple of years, but now you got a quality quarterback. High hopes in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. Cleveland is not going to be as bad as they were last year. Remember, they were the darling last year. Everybody's hype team, the new coach, Baker Mayfield, brought spark to the team last year and year two and all of that stuff. Well, they were a complete flop last year, and it cost them the coach. They're going to be better this year, but the bad part for them is they're going to have the disadvantage of not having all those practices for the beginning of the season with a new coaching staff. And it's 3 coaches in 3 years for Cleveland. Never good, but they still will be better. But the other team, and yes, full disclaimer, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I bet against my hometown team as much as I bet on them. The Steelers are going to be a better team this year. You go back and look at what they did last year with absolutely no offensive help. When Big Ben went down, Mason Rudolph had a couple good games, and then he flattened out so bad that they had to bring in Duck Hodges. And, the city was going quack, quack crazy whenever he had that little 3-game streak that he had, but they had no offensive production. It was the defense that carried that team, and that defense was on the field for the majority of the game because the offense couldn't stay on the field. Big Ben's back. Does he stay healthy? That's a big question mark. But you've got to go into a season and handicap it that he is. All of the indications so far out of Pittsburgh in the training camp is he is healthy. No signs, ill effects, hangovers from the elbow injury. So they're going to take wins away from Baltimore as well. And then the last part is look at the Baltimore schedule. They have one stretch where, and I know everybody's saying, okay, well, there's no fans, so there's not going to be home field advantages. There's not going to be home field advantages as far as what we normally expect with crowds and everything and what you would put on a point spread. But there's still a disadvantage to having to travel. And they have a stretch from November 8th through December 14th that they're going to play 3 of 4 on the road at Indianapolis, which is everybody's pick to win their division, at New England, which is still always going to be a tough out as long as Belichick is there. They also have games at Pittsburgh for that 3-game stretch, and then the 4th game in that stretch, they have that big revenge game against Tennessee, playoff revenge. And then after they get through that 4-game stretch, they got Dallas and Cleveland to finish up. That's a hellacious 6-game stretch that, they could easily go 3-3 there through that 6-game stretch. You only got to find 2 more losses on the card to cash your ticket on the under. I'm going ahead. I'm looking at Baltimore under 11.5 wins.
Well, that is a bold statement going against Baltimore there. I'm telling everyone in Vegas, though, by the way, that you're fading the Raiders. So just know that, Marco.
Hey, you know what? I'm fine with it. There's no problem there.
The one win total in the NFL that I saw the Giants at 6.5. Like, you tell me who the Giants are beating. You've got not only do you have Dallas and Philadelphia twice in your division, you got out of division games against the Steelers, the 49ers, at the Rams. I know the Rams are going to be great, but you still got to go to LA, Tampa, at Seattle, and at Baltimore, and Cleveland. They're going to win 7 games and beat you with an entirely new coaching staff and a terrible offensive line and we're replacing key guys on defense. I don't see that at all.
Wow, yeah, and they're coming in with a little bit of hype. Absolutely. Everyone's talking about, there's a lot of noise coming out of that camp, about how the receivers are doing so great in practice. I think it was either Shepard or Slayton. Heard a lot of that. I'm not on the Giants either, for sure. They have a tough slate there. The Cowboys are better. The Eagles are the Eagles. The Redskins, they should get by both games, but God forbid they drop one of those. It's going to be extremely tough for the Giants to get there. The ones I like here that I have for this show, and we've covered a few of them. Obviously, I can talk about the Patriots. I took that under 9 a long time ago. It went down or actually went back up when they signed Cam Newton, and it went back down again. But they just lost so many players. And I know Belichick is the man's made of magic, but I think there's a reason why a lot of those players opted out. I mean, there's a huge discrepancy with one team, everybody opting out. Well, it's because Belichick busts their ass in practice. And I'm not so sure this team is going to be completely bought in here on a year that have so much uncertainty to win, especially when you have the Buffalo Bills that are improving. And to be honest with you, the Dolphins have improved, and the Jets, who knows? I mean, the Jets, it's just a big wild card there. I do like some of the guys they picked up on their line, so the Patriots under. But one thing I do like under that's a little bit different is the Atlanta Falcons under 7.5 wins. And they actually have the hardest schedule based on season win totals in the whole league, and I think that's something that I like to look at. They also face the hardest slate of offenses. Their defense is completely revamped coming into this year, and I know that they had some success towards the end of the year. They had a good finish towards the end of the year, but at the same time, losing all those big players, Beasley, a couple other guys, Neal's never healthy there. I actually think it's going to be hard for the Atlanta Falcons to get 8. So that's my 2 cents right there. Well, let's get into this derby then, guys, shall we? Let's do it. Looks like, huge race, obviously, with no fans so late in the year. We lost Nadal. We lost Charlatan. Art Collector was a scratch before they even drew, I think. And now we have King Guillermo. Also, if I told you guys that the 3 favorite horses all drew the outside post, you'd tell me it was the year 2020, wouldn't you?
Yeah, when you're saying all of the favorites in the race drawing the outside post positions, it's almost like, I know, like in harness racing, a lot of times whenever we have like the invitational at a track, the race secretary will, handicap the race in, assign post positions, give the easier, the worst horses the inside and the best horses the outside post positions, and that's almost what it looks like in this one. But, the race begins and ends with Tiz the Law. There's no question about that. He has been the best horse all year long, and when you ran that, mass unit list of all of the horses that, would have been contenders in here, and injuries have derailed them. You forgot another one, and it's one that very sad for me, because I'm sitting here looking at, I had a 26-1 ticket on in a futures wager, and that was Maxfield. That was another one that was on the Derby trail. I've never seen a year where so many of the key players went by the wayside. But on the same note, we've never had a Kentucky Derby here in September. So that's, the longer you race, the more chances things are going to go bad. Now, with Tiz the Law, he has answered every beat, every question, every distance. And the race that he ran in the Belmont, which will be the distance he's running today, normally the Belmont would have been 1.5 miles. So he's already shown that he can get the distance, and nobody's really given him a thorough test. He will get tested in this one. He is the horse to beat. The outside post position, you never want to be all the way out there, but I guarantee you, if you ask the trainer, the jockey, anybody that knows racing, would you rather have the outside post position or would you want to have the rail? They're going to tell you every single time they don't want the rail in the Kentucky Derby. He's got tactical speed. He'll be able to pick where he wants to go. He'll get out of the gate fine and decide if he wants to go all the way to the front or if he wants to sit just off the pace. They'll make that decision as they head into that first turn. So the post position does not bother me with Tiz the Law. And I don't know if Chris feels differently about that, but I don't see it as a problem for him.
Pole position 17 is never won, and there hasn't been a horse shorter than 2-1 since Spectacular Bid. And Manny Franco's only ridden twice, and his worst race came at Churchill in the slump. Well, hopefully the sarcasm came through.
It did.
I'm with you, Marco. It doesn't bother me at all where he is in post 17. You saw Country House win from the far outside. Big Browns won from the far outside. And you're right. The one thing I am curious about, and I don't think we'll be able to find out this year because the rail horse Finnick the Fierce is hopeless, and a couple other real long shots in the first three posts. Will the new gate, the new starting gate that Churchill assembled for this year, the 20-horse gate, will that actually have an effect on horses that draw the rail, getting a better trip and not really staring at the turn in the rail from their post the way it's angled in, and then having that gap between post 14 and 15 as well. So I'm curious to see the structure of the new game, but post 17 does not bother me at all for Tiz the Law. If King Guillermo does scratch, that just means he'll be a little bit closer to a slower pace as opposed to just maybe a couple of further lengths back from her hotter pace. So if you like Tiz the Law before the draw, which I think we all, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I know I certainly did, there's certainly no reason not to like him just because he's out in post 17.
All right. Well, it looks like for this race, it's a mile and an eighth. It's not too short, not too long. Obviously,
mile and a quarter.
Sorry, mile and a quarter.
But usually the second leg of the Triple Crown is a mile and an eighth because it's usually actually mile and 3/16 is the freakiest.
That's very true. Exactly. Very
He's got
true.
me all screwed up now.
Oh my God, my mind's everywhere. Dan. I get it, but what's not screwed up is that we have a ton of horses in one race here, which doesn't happen often. Obviously, Kentucky Derby's pretty much the very few. It could be the only one where there's this many horses. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see too many races where there's 18, 19, 20 horses, depending upon who's scratched here. And my thoughts are, there's three horses that are huge favorites, and they are on the outside here. Are there anything in the middle that is worth looking at right now, guys? Listen, I guess we can go right into our sleeper question. Is there something that you might like as a price that could hit the board? And Chris, you can go first.
I take a look at a horse like New York Traffic from post 15. He's ridden by a very aggressive jockey in Paco Lopez, who, if King Guillermo would have been the answer, but we just don't know right now what's going on with him. He may scratch. He did not work on Thursday morning, did not jog, and we're going to find out something later on Thursday about him. So at the time we're doing this, he's the unknown, but he would have been my answer. But especially if he's out of the race, New York Traffic is a horse that I would take a very long look at 20-1 on the morning line. He's the other New York bred in the race. He ran his eyeballs out in the Haskell, just getting beat by Authentic. And if the race would have been a yard longer, he would have gone by Authentic to win. He also ran a huge race at Churchill Downs where he finished second, beaten a length by the horse that Marco mentioned before, Maxfield, who is an undefeated horse that probably would have been the second choice maybe, or maybe co-favored somewhere around there with Tiz the Law. So he's got some pedigree. He's got some class. He's got an aggressive jockey. And as we've seen in recent years in the Derby, speed is very, very dangerous. I mean, Maximum Security got taken down, but he was on the front end. Justify obviously won from the front end. Always Dreaming won on the front end. I mean, whether that's been track conditions or slop or whatever, but horses on or near the lead, that speed has carried. And if King Guillermo is out, this maybe turns into New York Traffic and Authentic kind of on the front end. We've certainly seen New York Traffic show that he is a very game animal. And I think because of Saki Joseph and Paco Lopez, he's not going to get bet. Bob Baffert's going to get bet. Todd Pletcher is going to get bet. But I don't know if New York Traffic's going to get bet. So I think he's going to be pretty close to 20-1. And if this pace dawdles a little bit like I think it could, I think he has a huge shot not only to hit the board, but be a potential price horse to win. Because I think if Tiz the Law gets beat, this is just my opinion, and you and Marco can chime in at some point on this as well. I think if Tiz the Law gets beat, it's not going to be by someone who's going to come from the clouds and pass him in the stretch. Because once Tiz the Law change leads and kicks in and levels off, he's gone and he's going to accelerate. But if someone's in front of him, gets game and holds him off, I think that's how Tiz the Law loses.
So, Marco, your thoughts on this? Any rebuttal or agreement?
Well, I got to agree with what Chris is saying about New York Traffic. He's a horse that's got the tactical speed that will be sitting on the lead or just off the lead. I think his best move is what he did in that race with Authentic, where he sat just off the lead with him, let the other horse, cut the fractions out, and then he made that, one charge. My only problem with New York Traffic is now we've seen 3 consecutive seconds. Granted, they were to good horses, Authentic, Maxfield, and Wells Bayou, if you go 3 back, but is a guy that's, I've owned horses. I've had a few horses that have had, second-itis, and it's very frustrating. The checks are nice when the purse checks come, but, I'm an ego. I like to get my picture taken. Of course. I want to be in that winner's circle, and, but yes, if they get soft fractions, because, who's going to, where is all the speed going to come from? If they get modest numbers, it's going to be harder whenever the test comes from Tiz the Law to make his move. And what I'm going to jump on, and it's Tiz the Law's race to lose, but I'll give a second scenario to how Tiz the Law can lose. If they get the soft numbers up front at the beginning of the race, when Tiz the Law does make that charge to go for the lead, he makes his move. If one of these horses gives him a good battle before giving it up, then a horse that is sitting right off of Tiz the Law's back would be the one that would benefit the most. How many times have you seen, 2 horses battle it out, and the one horse puts the other one away down the stretch, only to see this horse flying on the outside that he can't put off the second challenge? Well, to me, that horse would be Honor AP. When I first watched the Shared Belief, when I watched it live, I was actually kind of disappointed in Honor AP simply because I thought he would be more impressive. He finished second in that race to 1,000 Words, a horse that's in this race today, and I thought he's a better horse than that. And the more I looked at it, and then when I saw the speed figures afterwards, he actually went faster, got a faster rating in that race, and it doesn't look as bad as it did. And he was already in the Derby. Did they really go all out? Now, I know you never pass up a purse check, and trust me, I know that as an owner, because they're hard to come by. But, the big goal was the first Saturday in September. And, Mike Smith is a savvy, rider. You want to bring that horse back to the barn with something left in the tank for the bigger prize, which is, the Kentucky Derby. So I'm not 100% sure they were full out. And the one thing I'll say about Honor AP, and I got high on this horse after the Santa Anita Derby, this horse was screaming for distance. Now, remember, the Shared Belief was a shorter distance than the Santa Anita Derby. This is a spot where he's going the 1.25 miles, and I think he's really going to like the 1.25 miles. Now, we already know that Tiz the Law can get the 1.25 miles because he did it in the Belmont, but I think Honor AP will step up in here, and I think he is going to be the main rival when they're turning for home. But I do have one long shot, and I know Chris said that he doesn't see anybody in this year's crop that can really come out of the clouds. This one won't be totally out of the clouds, but he'll be making a run from mid-pack. And my surprise horse is Soleil Volante. This is a horse that is fallen off of a lot of people's radar because of that last race in the Belmont. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a horse owner, when they made that move and put him in that race, I thought it was the most idiotic move that you could make. You do not race a horse back in 10 days in thoroughbred racing, especially in a Grade 1. I've seen trainers do it, occasionally run a horseback, on a short time, but it's a race they're already at that track, okay? Not only did they run back in 10 days, they had to ship this horse from Florida, okay? So you're missing a day, of work when you're shipping, and you're in a van, or I don't know if they vanned them or flew them up, whichever way. It's a disruption to the horse's routine, and then you're coming back in 10 days short. I just say put a line through that race line and look at the rest of what this horse has done. And if you take that line out, you got a horse that would have 6 starts, 4 wins, 1 second, 1 third. I think this horse, and he has the speed figures that says he can go with these top horses. There's so many horses in this race, and I know Chris will agree. You look at their speed figures; they have zero shot of hitting the board.
Yeah,
you're right. When I was writing my preview for ESPN.com last night, I was just looking, and I'm looking at these horses, and just from the rail, Finnick the Fierce, no speed. Max Player, no speed. Enforceable, no speed. Storm the Court, plotter. Necker Island, what are you even doing in the race? South Bend is going to be like South Bend is going to be the horse that's 50-1 on the morning line, and you're going to look up and he's going to be like 20-1. It's like every Notre Dame fan in the world is going to bet him just because he's named South Bend. So he's going to be like that.
Touchdown, Jesus.
Let's hope so.
Why is he in the race? Winning impression. Why are you in the race? Normally, I kind of kid and joke about the filler and the vanity entries. Like if it was like a real Kentucky Derby on the first Saturday in May, and you had the pageantry, and you had 100 and something thousand people there, and as an owner, or a connection with the horse, you got to experience that. You know what? That's pretty damn cool, and I really can't ultimately blame or fault someone for running a horse in that scenario. That probably doesn't belong, but this year, you don't even get to take all of that in. It's just like another race day. So I guess maybe you can say, hey, I had a horse run 14th in the Derby, and I didn't get to see him, and we couldn't dress up, and we didn't get hammered on a tray of mint juleps and go to the infield. But I don't know why some of these horses are in the race. I will say this: I am glad you brought up Honor AP, and for those of you who have access to replays, I don't know if you noticed it as well, Marco, watch the start of that race in the Shared Bully. He got absolutely sideswiped by a horse and taken out of the race, and he still almost won. I think that bodes well. He was the horse that I was most excited about entering the 2020 Derby season back around the first of the year when we started talking about the Derby Trail, just because I had confidence that John Sheriffs was going to manage him properly to get to the first Saturday in May. And now that he is here on the first Saturday in September, I still have confidence that John Sheriffs is going to manage him. But the only thing I wonder about him is if there isn't a ton of speed in there, is he going to be a little bit too far back? Or does Mikey maybe move him a little bit closer to? Remember, this horse wired the field in his maiden race, so he does have some natural speed, but it seems like his preferred running style is coming from a little bit off the pace.
So what you guys are saying, and great stuff, by the way, fantastic breakdowns, is that Honor AP and Tiz the Law are your clear favorites. You guys, it sounds to me,
yes,
you guys think that they're going to win first and second in this race.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, on paper, they clearly stand out. Mm-hmm. But I will say this: if you think it's as easy as that, only 2 times in the last 41 years have you had a Kentucky Derby where the favorite has won and the second choice ran second. So it normally doesn't run that way. Now, I also can't remember a Derby in my years of handicapping that really looked as formful as this one does. Maybe since what, Silver Charm? That might be like the chalkiest one that I can remember in terms of going into the race being like, yeah, this is going to be like favorite over second choice or favorite over third choice. So I think the key to making money is going to be trying to separate 'Tis the Law and Honor AP, maybe play them on top and find a long shot that you like and put them underneath as opposed to playing. Now, if you want to play a cold 'Tis the Law over Honor AP and just press it a whole bunch of times, you can do that. But my hunch is that being that it normally doesn't happen, there will be some horse that people can make a case for, whether it's attachment rate, whether it's New York traffic, whether it's anybody that slips into the trial. And we're kind of looking at a nice payout again on Saturday.
Well, so what about the fractions in this race? And you guys touched on it a little bit. You didn't think they were going to be too big. I was looking at a couple of horses that I was wondering. I don't know a lot about them. Money Moves is one of them, and that 1,000 words.
1,000 words.
And I'm wondering if these are speed horses and if they're going to make the fractions higher. What are your thoughts? Go ahead, Mark.
Well, 1,000 words obviously is coming off, his best race of his career in the Shared Belief. Now, if you remember in the Shared Belief, Bob Baffert had two horses in there, and he scratched the other horse and decided to send him to New York to race instead the following weekend, Uncle Chuck. So it was a race that 1,000 words needed to get points, and it was a short field, and they sent him down the road, and he raced well. But so often when you're in a short field, you don't get pressed. It's because nobody's that far back. And okay, you want to take the lead and cut the fractions and do the heavy lifting, so to speak. They'll let you do that. And he wasn't pressed, and he was able, and he bravened up and swelled up, so to speak, as horses will do on the front end when they're not contested, and he got home with it. Now he's going to have a different jockey. You look down his lines. He had Flavian Pratt on him on most of his rides. Sedella was in him on the last one because Pratt was on a different horse. This is a spot where he's not going to be able to dictate things. So can he have the same fire when he's not controlling the race? If he goes to the lead and tries to control the race, he's not holding off the horses that are going to be coming at him. And then what happens a lot of times when a horse gets passed and like that, you could have a horse that, might be, confidence level. He could back through, and not hit, the ticket. Right. Where if you got a horse that's closing, he might not get there, but he can stay on your ticket. Those front runners that collapse, it's not fun watching them, like you're on a broken down car on a freeway when they're passing you left and right. I've been there. Trust me. It's not fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially, Florent Giroux is going to send this horse. He's a very aggressive rider who typically takes advantage of pace scenarios where he doesn't see it. Right? This horse is going to be on the lead. And I haven't seen any odds on which horse will finish last. I'd be pretty interested in seeing what type of price I could get on 1,000 words finishing last, because, like you said, he could, being I think the closest to the rail on the speed, the closer to the speed that's closest to the rail, and he could back up through this field pretty dramatically. And I did find it interesting. There are two interesting Derby marriages here that I caught. You got Florent Giroux and Bob Baffert when they teamed up as the blocking back for Justify upon Restoring Hope in the Belmont in 2018. So they're back together. And then you got an even more interesting tandem with South Bend, who I had mentioned before. You got Tyler Gaffalione and Bill Mott. Tyler Gaffalione last year was a jockey on War of Will, who Maximum Security took out and nearly sent to the ground and got DQ'd, which wound up putting Country House and Bill Mott up. So I love looking for neat little storylines in addition to just basic handicapping stuff. So I thought those were a couple of little neat things that people might just kind of be like, that's kind of cool.
The other horse you mentioned, Kiev, that this is a big question mark. Money Moves is a horse that you talk about a monumental leap in class. This is a horse that's going from breaking his maiden in a maiden special weight to winning again in an allowance optional claimer, non-winners of one, and then come back and finish second in a neck in another allowance race. He's biting off a lot here. But if you look at the speed figures, this is a horse that 3 races has improved dramatically his speed figures each and every one of those races. Now, can he get the class, handle this class jump, handle the distance? That's asking a lot. But if we would be talking back in the normal time of this being the first Saturday in May, I always talk about horses that have limited starts where, they only have 3, 4, 5 starts. These are where you see the biggest jumps in form from a horse because they're still putting it all together. And with just 3 races, this is a horse that has a very bright future, and you never know when that next big jump is coming. And Todd Pletcher is not a guy that is going to put a horse in. We talked about the vanity of a lot of people. You want to have your horse in a Derby and that. This is a big jump for money moves. You don't want to ruin a good horse either. This is a $975,000 yearling. It's not a cheap horse that caught lightning in a bottle. They got a lot invested in this horse. So I'm curious to see how he runs. Can he pick up any pieces? He definitely has a license to improve, and that last speed figure is better than over half of this field. I'm curious to see what Chris' thoughts are.
I think he is looking at the morning line, I sure as hell have seen a whole lot of 30-1 shots look a lot worse than him, and I agree. I mean, you go through your first 2 conditions with Breeze, and then that last race, like I don't want to say it's a prep, but I think in that race he showed he can sit off of a little bit of a layoff. He's sitting, he can make a run in the stretch. So he is indeed, yes, is someone that I absolutely am going to have on my ticket, and I'm guessing he's probably going to get bet a little bit just because it's Pletcher and Javier Castellano. But I can see this horse certainly at the very least. We talked about earlier some of these horses that have no speed and no business, and he at least has some. I mean, there is an upside to him, whereas a horse like Necker Island or Winning Impression, it's like they are what they are. I mean, they're late runners who are just going to kind of plod and go around the track, whereas this horse is going to be in position to potentially make a move, and maybe he'll class out and be able to hit the board. Maybe he won't, but at 30-1 or 25-1 or so, whatever he's going to go off at, I'd be interested. While we're talking about Pletcher, I hadn't seen, did Dr. Post get injured? Is that why he's not running in this race?
No, I think they're pointing him to a different race.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of surprising. Because he ran a pretty darn good Belmont. And
he definitely was a horse on the improve, but apparently, Pletcher, rather than, be trying to race for, a piece of it, he is targeting a race that he can win. So I definitely will be looking for Dr. Post in that next race.
Well, that's really interesting. Almost like, is that a tell? I mean, Pletcher, does he just want to have a horse in this race and doesn't want his name not being here? Or was there a serious reason why he moved this horse in? That's what I want to know.
I think he probably entered the horse because the race didn't oversubscribe and there aren't 20 horses, and run the horse in Derby, and he took a look at the entries and maybe saw the same thing that Marco and I have seen, like a horse that's training well, running well, he's run 3 good races, and you figure why not take a shot? The worst thing that can happen is we're not gonna if the race is going bad, we're not going to ruin him, and then we'll just throw him in a lesser stakes or just try and clear that N2X next time.
Well, there you go.
The other one last thing to throw in on Money Moves is we did talk about the start that Honor AP had. Go back for a horse that was making only his 3rd career start, and this is something that for me, when I'm looking at horses, is a sign that you have a good horse. In only his 3rd start, he blew the start, bobbled at the start, and was mature enough to recover and finish 2nd by a neck. Young horses, when something goes wrong, too many of them, next week, next race. This horse didn't, and that was what really impressed me about Money Moves, and says that he does have a license to make another step forward.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. We didn't really talk about Authentic much, and he's the third favorite here. I know he's the one that beat Honor AP in that race you were talking about. And then Authentic, came back and won his last race at Haskell back in July. And I'm just wondering if he's got to be worth a look, right?
Go ahead, Chris, I'll let you go first.
I think he's either first or like one of those first or last type of horses. Two things about Authentic. Number one, I think New York traffic was getting set to go by him in the Haskell. And if you look at it, the races out at Santa Anita, Honor AP needed that race. And then when Honor AP prepped and pointed towards the Santa Anita Derby, he absolutely toyed with him, and I don't know. I don't like the far outside post for a speed horse like that. I think he's going to have to send and gun to the lead. I'm sure it's Pletcher and Johnny V. Baffert and Johnny V. So they're going to get bet, but I don't have a great feeling about Authentic's chances of winning this race. Or hitting back for that matter, hitting the board for that matter.
The other negative to Authentic is because he's going to be on the outside, and as Chris said, they're going to have to send him. A lot of times when you fire a horse up like that, where he's got to go full throttle out of there, to get to the lead before you hit that turn. Sometimes you can't back him back down. And rate them, to be able to, carry this distance and hold the horses off in the stretch. And another point is, John Velasquez is a great jock. This is going to be the first time he's been on this horse. And I don't care how good the jockeys are. Me as an owner, and I'm in a big race, I always wanted a jockey that knew my horse and knew all of the little ins and outs and quirks that the horse might have. I'm sure, he'll get all the information that he needs from Bob Baffert. I doubt that Mike Smith will share any with him, But, Mike Smith was on him for that victory, in the last race. And it's a great point that Chris brought up about, the Santa Anita Derby. Honor AP, that was the race that they were all out. That's the one they prepped for. That was their ticket to the Derby. The last race wasn't. They were already there. It was a prep race to me. And Authentic, I just don't see that, he's going to be on the lead. And I don't think he can hold off this field. And the problem with front runners is when they get past, do they quit?
All right. So go ahead.
Arco had mentioned about Johnny V taking the mount for the first time on Authentic. And while Manny Franco has been the regular jockey since the second race on Tis the Law, he's only had 2 Derby mounts, and they were both on hopeless long shots. So this could be a situation where the lack of that big crowd on Derby Day might actually benefit him, because maybe there won't be that bit of nerves coming out to my old Kentucky home and that wall of noise and just looking and seeing the colors of the Patriots. Like for Manny Franco, who basically started right on the inner dirt at Aqueduct, and to now be on the Kentucky dirt to the odds-on 3-5 Derby favorite. Normally there'd be a lot of nerves for someone in his position to be on a horse that a lot of people think has to fall down to lose, and it could be something to watch where, he might be more relaxed, and maybe the win in the Belmont might have relaxed his nerves in terms of winning a big race like that. So I'm just curious to see, maybe we'll find that after the race, did the lack of crowd really affect him and kind of have a calming effect on him? And not only him, I don't know off the top of my head what horses, if any, have tend to be real bad actors and get very agitated and nervous because of sound. Like that's another thing. I wouldn't expect to see a lot of these horses on edge on Saturday because it is going to be so quiet. So there are a couple of very unusual ancillary things that these riders and horses are going to be dealing with on Saturday.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
To add to that, I mean, and this is a handicapping tip for people with, in regular overnight races. So often, jockeys will override a horse because of their odds. My horse I'm racing, right now at my local track, the Meadows, my jockey, she races, when we tell them over and over again, she races better out of a hole, okay? But she was 3-5 2 weeks ago. What's he do? He's putting her on the front end because he's 3-5. And
I'm sure you were happy with that.
Yeah, I was real happy with that, especially whenever he didn't take his foot off the gas going down the third quarter. And then at the top, deep stretch. I mean, you could see the shadow of the finish line. The horse that was sitting behind her, pops out and beats her. And then this week, when he did race her out of the hole, because he wasn't 3-5, gets off the bike, she finishes a bang up, finish. Man, she does race good out of a hole. Really? I didn't know.
Oh my God!
But yes, the odds, the tote board does affect the jockeys on how they'll drive. But the biggest point, no crowd, so that's a big. But I think the bigger benefit to what Chris said is the fact that he already had the Belmont.
Yeah,
he got that. He got that calming win because that was his biggest race of his career to that point. And now you've got one of those under your belt. So yes, normally the Manny Franco would be a huge factor in your having a jockey with that kind of pressure with this kind of horse. Now, will it resurface if he wins this one? And now, crowd or no crowd, you're going for a Triple Crown in the third leg. That's a whole different story.
It's a lot easier to shoot that game-winning free throw with no crowd there instead of shooting it with everybody in the whole world screaming from their couches and in the stadium. So that is interesting to me. I'm rooting for Manny Franco here. I mean, let's see this guy win one, right? Obviously, your pocketbook's not going to be as nice if you're just trying to bet sideways here. If you just bet horizontally, but Tis the Law has really impressed me, and I have no disagreement with you guys. You guys have had massive Kentucky Derby winning tickets here in the past. How do you plan on approaching this race? We can start with you, Marco.
Well, for this race, when you've got an odds-on favorite like this, it's all about the exotics. And even if I made money in the Belmont. We had the odds-on favorite win, but I took a stand and pounded out a big exacta and pounded out a semi-cold punch trifecta where you're basically playing an exacta and then adding 2 or 3 horses to that third spot, and you're going to make money because, as I said, this is the Kentucky Derby. It is the most bet horse race of the year, and there are going to be so many people that this is the only horse race they bet all year. And we say it over and over again, but I can't emphasize it enough. When you're betting sports, you're betting against the house. It's you against the house, and there's that 11-10 edge the house has. And when you bet, you're getting the point spread at the point time that you're getting it. When you're betting horse racing, you're not betting against the house. The house doesn't care if the 3-5 shot wins or the 99-1 shot wins because they're making a percentage. It's a set percentage. What determines it is the betting pool. And if that betting pool has dead money in it, people that are betting into it that have no idea, they're betting kids' names, they're betting their favorite colors, their favorite numbers, it puts money into the pool that you're going after. And I, tend to think that I'm smarter than the average horse bettor, and that gives me a better chance. So even on a day where, if you have the one, the 2 stone cold favorites, or is like, we like to use the phrase, an ice cold exacta comes in on a normal day, first and second, you might be looking at a $6, $7 exacta. You're still going to look at $18, $19 here. and you can make money betting properly. And that's where I'm going to be looking.
That's Marco D'Angelo. You can find him on wagertalk.com. Follow him on Twitter at Marco in Vegas. And Chris, what is your way of approaching your ticket?
Breaking news here on the podcast. King Guillermo out.
Well, there you go.
So that makes the ticket a lot cheaper, and that moves New York traffic up dramatically in my mind. So, like Marco said, the key is going to be finding someone in the second spot that's somewhat of a price. So, I'm going to key Tiz the Law first and second in my trifectas, and if I decide to play a superfecta, and then I'll use attachment rate, New York traffic, and an honor AP in the second spot. Maybe money moves in the second spot as well on a couple of spots, and then hit an all button or a modified all button for third. But we're down to 17 horses now, so that'll if you hit the all button and you're thin in the other two spots, it won't be too bad of a ticket. I'll key Tiz the Law first and second in my exactas as well with those horses as well. Money moves, honor AP, attachment rate, and New York traffic. So that's pretty much how I'm going to play it. And then I'll probably play a couple exactas, like I said, with the longer prices on top of Tiz the Law. But this does two things in my opinion. It moves New York traffic up, and it makes Tiz the Law, I think, that much harder to beat and that much bigger of a favorite.
Awesome. Well, where can our listeners find your column on that, Chris?
Well, but I did tweet it out today. It's on ESPN.com, probably under the chalk tab. But probably best to search my Twitter timeline for it. The podcast, which doesn't have nearly as in-depth conversation as Steve as I had here. The pod Steve and I did with some college football as well. There's a little bit of talk of the Derby is up to, but in terms of the hardcore horse racing chatter, this is you're getting a heck of a lot more of it here than you did with Steve and I. So this will be my pot of record for the Derby.
Well, we appreciate that, man. Thank you for that. And Marco, any last things to add?
I just wish everybody luck on Saturday, and everybody horses and jockeys in it. Have a safe and clean trip. That's what we. There's still animals out there, and my love of the sport obviously is with them, and everybody get home safe.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. That was Mr. Marco D'Angelo from wagertalk.com. Check his plays out at WagerTalk. Check Chris Fallica at Chris, Fallica on Twitter. Well, that was fun. And now it's time for a little UFC action for this week. After the Kentucky Derby, after you cash those tickets, we're going to want to cash a little bit on the UFC, and I have a play for you for the main event again. Last week we were 1-1, but the much bigger play that we won on was the over last weekend, and it was a pretty easy tell for me. Anthony Smith can take a beating. They did go over that round and a half here. Thought that was going to happen. Unfortunately, the long shot I took on Anthony Smith didn't work for a lot less of a bet, but I was glad it was a profitable podcast for the podcast plays last week. Let's move into this week here. We have our main event. We have Alistair Overeem versus Augusto Sakai. Alistair Overeem is about a minus 150. Augusto is about a plus 130 right now. Looking at this fight, you have somebody 40 years old, but the guy looks like he's still in killer shape. Alistair Overeem, 46-18, 24 KOs, 17 submissions, 5 decisions, 18 losses. But if you look at what he's done recently, Walt Harris, he beat, pretty good fighter. He lost to Jargino Rosenstruck, almost went the distance, lost at the very last few seconds. And Rosenstruck is awesome, as you know. Alexei Olenek, he beat. Alexei's awesome. Sergey Pavlich was a fight he had. Then he lost to Curtis Blades, which is pretty good. And Francis Nagano, who might be the best heavyweight. Before that, he beat Fabricio Werdum. So this fighter has fought the best of the best, and literally his last 8 fights, he went 5-3. That's pretty good with this lineup here. And he's fighting a guy, Augusto Sakai, who is 15-1, 11 KOs, 0 submissions, 4 decisions. He doesn't win by submission. He wins by punching. The guy is not in the greatest shape. He's definitely kicking some butt here, and he's only had 4 UFC fights, but the guys he fought are nobodies. Chase Sherman, Andrei Arlovsky, Marcin Tybura, and a couple other ones. Got to tell you here, the play is going to be on Alistair Overeem here. Overeem is just a much more accomplished fighter. I don't care he's older. Overeem does have a 3-inch reach advantage, 80-77. Now, Augusto has a significant strikes landed per minute advantage at 5.45 to 3.66, but that's going to throw people off, and because he hasn't fought anybody. So in my opinion, you have to toss that stat out. Significant strike accuracy, Overeem 63% to 46%. Okay. Overeem knows how to take people down 1.4 per 15 minutes to only 0.2 in Augusto's 15 minutes. Overeem doesn't submit people. He used to, but at the same time, he knows how to get points. Overeem is my play here at -150. Going to play that for 3 stars. And this is a 5-round fight. I don't think it gets that far. We're going to take Overeem for TKO at +155. Everyone, have a fantastic weekend watching the Derby. Drink a few mint juleps. Have a fun time. Whoever you're with, your family, your friends, make sure you stay safe. If you haven't yet, get to Vegas. Flights are cheap. Sign up with Kelly in Vegas. Get in those super contests. And as always, go get some wins.